for a lot of the science that we discussed here, it's not necessarily that easy. So I do try to talk to people. I mean, I think back to when I first started here in Franklin County about 8 years ago, coming over from Cincinnati. Now, of course, we have a lot of, and that's where I'm from, but we have drug problems over there that are associated with bigger cities. And going back to when I started as a prosecutor, it was all, I mean, the most dangerous one was crack. Crackheads were unpredictable, they're volatile. They'll just jump out of the alley and ask, rob anybody on the street, hurt them, strangers. And but I started to see, in the 5-6 years I was over at the prosecutor's office in Cincinnati, all of a sudden you started seeing people come to court, and everything that was theft related, it seemed like, Judge, my client's a heroin addict. First, it's heroin. And this is 2008, 9, 10 in Cincinnati, and heroin. The drug hadn't been around in 30 years. I mean, that's what Keith Richards is on, and for you parents out here, you probably know those kids probably do. But I mean, it was kind of foreign, and that was before you saw a lot of. And I harkened back to an article that appeared in the Cincinnati Enquirer probably 15 years ago about OxyContin. I mean, these were things nobody was really quite connecting the dots. And then I came out here to Franklin County. One of the first cases on my desk, first day I was here, was about a bunch of kids who were on heroin over in Batesville. They were burglarizing houses. I think one of them is now dead, and the other 3 are still in prison. And these were kids from a nice community, and I was a little bit shocked. I mean, I don't want to go into too much of that story, but what had happened, and the reason they got reported is a friend of theirs overdosed on heroin on her 18th birthday. And they bought the heroin, a block from where I went to high school in Cincinnati, less than a mile from my grandma's house in St. Bernard, and they used it at Bob Evans and off I-74 in North Bend. And by the time this girl got home to Batesville, she was dead on her 18th birthday. And it was really sad too, because part of that case was that she wanted to use it to fit in, which brings us to the peer pressure. Now, I will say, since that case, I haven't seen anything like that with those kind of hard drugs, because I think all 4 of these young men were all juveniles when these crimes were committed. So they were high school kids. I'm glad to say that hasn't, necessarily repeated. Now, does that mean that we've wiped it out that level? No, I'm not naive enough to think that. But that seemed to be the high water mark as far as I'm concerned, at least with heroin. From my perspective, both as a prosecutor and community member, what do I see that puts kids at risk for youth substance abuse? Well, like Dee said, peer pressure, and in particular, negative peer pressure. And she hit the nail, I think you hit the nail right on the head when you're talking about lack of involvement and participation in extracurricular activities. Too much dead time. I mean, I'm a little partial to sports. I played football in high school. I had a great experience with it. I was lucky to fall into a group of a bunch of great guys that I'm still buddies with. But it's not limited to sports, whether it's 4-H, whether it's band, whether it's drama. I mean, urge your kids to be involved and be a part of something. Part-time job, I think one of the things I've always marveled at is it seems the ever-shrinking summer, especially for our high school kids, it's really hard for them to get a job, when you only have a month and a half of summer. But I think that's hugely important, and I'm not an educator, but that's just my 2 cents. When you're too busy to do drugs or mess around with that crowd, the chances are that when you don't have time, when you're doing something productive, it's going to be a lot harder for you to fall into that, into that spiral. But things exist today that didn't exist when I was in high school. I mean, the social media stuff, I mean, people, what you see post, the way people post things and the way it can affect a child's brain, it's hard enough being a kid, well, it's not as stressful as a kid thinks it is. I mean, stressful is when you get to the pressures of adulthood. But, I mean, that's a lot to handle. We all grew up, and, I mean, everybody knows what the lunch table can be like in junior high or high school. And just to think about the social media, the onslaught, and the reinforcement of things and trends. And, I mean, I think as parents, we have to be very careful about what we expose, what we allow our kids to expose themselves to. And I say that as a parent. My oldest is only in 2nd grade now, and somehow she found her way on something called TikTok. I don't even know what it is. But as soon as I saw it, I told my wife, get rid of the device. I don't want it. Because I know what kind of people are out there looking at these things, and maybe the world I live in is a little, I probably know too much, but right away, I mean, that to me, I didn't want her to have anything to do with that. And I was met with a lot of pushback from a second grader, so I can only imagine what it's going to be like 10 years from now, when she's a senior in high school. I don't want to think about it. Second thing is just, a lack of parental supervision and involvement. Now, this isn't always things that we can control. Most obvious is, see it all the time with neglect kind of cases, type cases, where the parents are, using drugs in front of the kids. Now, it probably would shock a lot of people in this room to think that happens, but it's more prevalent than you think, being the cool parent, being the okay parent, especially with marijuana, because marijuana doesn't have the same stigma as a lot of other drugs, for better or worse. And the problem with that is that marijuana is a lot more potent and a lot more like the harder drugs than it used to be. But if you're here tonight, I got to imagine you're not one of those parents. But something that I think we deal with here in Franklin County is we have the single or working parent situation. I mean, we're not the wealthiest place. A lot of homes around here either have a single parent who has to work, or both parents have to work just to make ends meet. And that's tough. That's really tough, because what that means is that you're not going to be around as much for your kid, but you're doing the best that you can. That's a hard situation. And how to reconcile this, I gotta say, I don't know. It's probably unique to each family. But that is a factor that we have here in Franklin County. Because on top of that, parents have to drive. A lot of parents have to drive pretty far to get to work. There's not a big employers here. A lot of people work all the way in Cincinnati or in Connersville or down in Lawrenceburg, which aren't exactly 10, 15 minutes away. So on top of working 8 to 10 hours a day, you're away at least another hour on top of that in drive time. So these are things that are hard that we have to keep in mind here in Franklin County. And if you have your child involved in some type of activity, perhaps those are better hours that are spent productively, that you can know that your child is under positive influences. But like Dee touched on, just the availability of drugs that weren't around. New and improved ways for kids to get their high, unfortunately. Prescription medication, I think, thankfully, I hope we've seen the worst of that. I've noticed in general kind of a decline. Not that it's not around anymore, not that they're not available, but in terms of prescription drug abuse, I'm not seeing that like I did when I first started here, at least with the youth. It's gone down in adults too. The legal and medical availability, or the legal availability of medical marijuana. I mean, we're in a border state. And Ohio has different laws, and they're legalizing things at a more rapid rate than Indiana is. So these things are available legal in places that aren't far from here. And we don't have Checkpoint Charlie at the border here. And so some of this stuff can make its way back into our community a lot easier than, say, if we were a few miles further inland or away from the border. But you have the vaping and the juuling. It's a little bit more. I think why this has taken off, especially among the youth, it doesn't leave an odor. I mean, when kids used to try to, get away with smoking cigarettes or smoking in the boys' room, they'd be washing their hands off, they'd be doing everything they can. This stuff, it doesn't travel with as much of an odor. It doesn't look like, it doesn't look like a pack of cigarettes. I've seen it look like a USB drive. It's very easy to conceal. They're smaller, they're odorless, they're harder to spot. And just in general, you see a glamorization of this type of lifestyle by popular culture. So, and this has been going on since I was a kid in the early 90s. And so keep an eye on what your kids are watching on TV. What can parents do to reduce the risk, I think, is get educated on the issues, first of all. What you guys are all part of is for the fact that you're even here. Pay attention, be involved in your child's life. Check the devices, their social media. They don't have a right to privacy in your house, especially if you're paying for it. If you're paying for their phone, you have a right to go through it. You're not a police officer, you're their parent. My daughter, she's in second grade, and all she wants is an iPhone. And I told her she can have one when she's old enough to have a job, and she can pay for all of them. And even then, I don't know if I'll let her. But that's, again, I'm a newer parent. You guys have older kids. We don't even have a landline, so at some point I'm probably going to have to give it in some fashion to let her have access to the outside world via the phone, because I guess that's the way it's done. But have consequences. If they're looking at things they're not supposed to, take the device away. You know, I know Franklin County High School has drug testing kits available, I think free of charge. I know Batesville's working on that. Like I just said, your child has no right to privacy. Your home is not a courtroom. There's no judge that'll throw out the drug test. Your child is not entitled to due process of law in your house. Force them to take a drug test. Ask questions. And you know, if your kid denies that I'm on drugs or that I've used, say, all right, put your money where your mouth is, get the kid. That's what this stuff is here for. So you as a parent can know what's going on in your child's life. What am I seeing just in general in terms of youth substance abuse? I haven't seen any real departure of the norm for underage drinking parties, especially with kids under 18. I mean, I get reports every year, a handful here or there. I think for the most, I'm not going to say that it's not going on, but I haven't seen any real spike in that. It's pretty much about a steady stream every year. There is obviously a rise in vaping, as it's a new thing and it's easy to hide. There's been a huge rise, a huge increase in tobacco substitutes at the school. You know, school-age kids getting caught by the school authorities with a nicotine substitute vaping. There is some. I have seen some THC cases with kids, but that's about the same. I would say it's about the same as kids that would get in trouble, get reported for marijuana. It's just a new way of using it. But like I said, these things are easy to hide, so it's attractive to kids. It is a $130 ticket if your child is found to be in possession of either tobacco or tobacco substitute or vaping. I know Franklin County High School does school suspensions for such things. Batesville, I'm told, is working on a diversion program. They used to have a diversion program for tobacco-related things, but now, since the game has changed a little bit, they're looking at reopening that and considering that for vaping. I was lucky enough to get a handout that in case anybody wants it, it can explain vaping a little bit better than I can because frankly, I don't know anything about it. I know that it's out there, I know part of it's illegal, but these are things as parents, I can't even imagine what it's going to look like I said, in 6, 7, 8 years when my daughter and son are old enough. I'm sure it'll evolve even more. But that to me, I learned a lot just from reading that about how that works and how dangerous it is, and for a lot of the reasons that Dee mentioned, for brain development and more or less as a gateway to bigger and worse things. So I'm gonna stop a little short tonight. I think everybody's a little worried about the weather.